unlocked the rooftop greenhouse before the storm, what the glass made us admit. I didn't unlock the greenhouse because I love plants. I unlocked it because glass tells the truth and humidity has no patience for theater. The building where I work pretends to be an art school by day and a small city by night. There's a glass house on the roof, half teaching garden, half donor bait, full of citrus trees and stubborn orchids. Security keeps the key on a hook behind the desk with a tag that says "Son only." I fixed the automatic vents last winter with a paperclip and an honest lie, so Lewis at the desk decided I'd earned a favor. When I asked for the key, he slid it over without commentary and only one rule. "Storm warning after midnight," he said, 40 minutes, and hey, no trials after 2. It sounded like a joke until I heard how tired he was. At 11:36 p.m., my phone performed the sentence I can now recite in my sleep. Loadout ran late. Quick drink turned into a seat at the bar. Might crash at the office. Don't wait up. Nia isn't a liar. She arranges chaos until it stops scaring strangers. She produces fundraisers and forgiveness with the same competent hands. For a year we'd been heroic at logistics and frugal with heat. Then came Ezra, the one every story like this involuntarily recruits. Operations lead, gaffer in his tote, posture like a guarantee. He stands exactly one respectful step from married women as if consent were a safety code. In daylight, I admire him. At 11:45 my neck votes. I took the elevator with the rattling cage to the roof. The night smelled like metal and a forecast. Down on the street, a siren practiced optimism. The greenhouse was a dark rectangle against a prim, black sky. Inside, the motion sensor woke slow rows of lamps until the citrus leaves sparkling with condensation looked like money nobody wanted. The air had that warm, wet sweetness that tricks you into believing you're brave just for breathing it. I set the key beside the potting bench and waited among seedlings like a man who had decided to stop inventing a version of himself that goes down easier. At 12:07 the elevator sighed again and delivered the two bodies my life had narrowed itself around. Nia with her hair pinned in the shape of competence and a mouth I could recognize in a power outage. Ezra one respectful step back, sleeves pushed, tote slung, eyes already mapping exits like exits were a language. He saw me through the glass, and did that small nod men like him keep for husbands they hope not to become stories about. He stopped in the doorway, palms visible, a man who insists on being allowed near other people's lives only by permission. "Is this where we're doing it?" Nia asked, not meaning fighting, not meaning fixing, meaning the messy middle people never schedule time for. She put one hand on her hip like a woman who has moved furniture and budgets into submission all day and just remembered her neck exists. "Greenhouses hate lies," I said. "Say it here." "In an elevator," she said, "because the universe loves reruns." 2 weeks ago, between floors and nouns, I kissed him, quick mint rehearsal. He stepped back. He said my name like a lock. I loved him for being the adult. I hated that I loved him for it. Tonight I almost followed the part of me that loves doors. I didn't. I came up. Ezra kept his eyes on the floor mat where the city shakes itself off before it tries to be a person. "Need me?" he asked her, not me. "I need you exactly there," she said, pointing to the threshold where outside ends and inside gets interested. "If I want less distance, I'll use proper nouns." He obeyed. Good men do. That's what keeps them employed and dangerous. The storm dragged a sleeve along the roof. I moved to Nia without haste, the way someone approaches an animal he knows has his name in its mouth. I put my hand at the back of her neck and pressed my thumb into the soft notch I've kept for emergencies that ought to be pleasures. Her eyes closed like a vote. I kissed her, jurisdiction, not apology. She answered like a woman who had been a plan for 12 hours and wanted to be a person for 3 honest minutes. "Keep our clothes," she murmured against my mouth. "We keep our life," I said. "We stop paying interest to Mercy." My other hand slid down along her ribs to her waist, where the elastic reminded me that laws have a point beyond paperwork. I stopped because I like the man I wake up next to, and I am trying to stay him. She took my lower lip between her teeth, brief and brave, then laughed softly, the laugh that has got me across worse bridges than this one. "Do you still want to hit him?" she asked, not unkind, eyes flicking toward the doorway where Ezra was reading a label on a watering can like it might absolve him. "I want to thank him for stepping back," I said, "and I want to owe him nothing else." "That budget," she said, "we can live inside." The fans in the ceiling were the sound of a room deciding to survive weather. Nia stepped away, put both hands on the potting bench, and stared at a tray of seedlings, thin green declarations hopping to be believed. "I didn't go to a room," she said, voice precise. "I found a lobby. I drank water and rehearsed a speech to myself, and then I came here because you don't tolerate speeches." "Tell me the worst thing you almost did," I said. "I almost texted you proof," she said. "Screenshots, times. I almost asked the elevator to be the villain so I wouldn't have to be brave. I didn't. I decided to ask for a room instead." "I drove to the motel with the orange doors," I said. "Sat there with a key I never used until the number stamped in the brass stopped pretending to be my future and turned back into a number. Then I laughed myself home and made eggs like a penance." The glass popped once, a little heat arguing with a little cold. The lemon tree decided to be fragrant on purpose. Ezra cleared his throat in the polite key. "If I'm in the way," he said, staring at the seam of the door, "say so and I'm a hallway." "You're a hallway," I said. "At 9 you're a van." He nodded once and became scenery you could trust, the only kind you want in a storm. Nia rolled up her sleeves the way stage managers roll up a curtain. "Do something foolish," she said, "but survivable." I picked up the misting bottle and sprayed the leaves above us until the greenhouse made its own weather. Droplets threaded her hair, dotted her collarbone, drew a constellation on the skin my mouth knew by treaty and by habit. I kissed the water from the place beneath her ear where she keeps unsayable things. She made a sound that tuned my ribs to their proper instrument. We didn't undress. We didn't perform. We made heat that could walk back through a lobby without calling a lawyer. The storm bumped the glass. The city under us changed its mind about a few streetlights. In the doorway, Ezra put one hand on his tote like a man who knows the difference between permission and competence and is determined not to make me define it. "Invite me when you're interesting," I said into the notch at her throat. "Not only when you're frightened, you'll be easier to love in other lighting." "I am inviting you," she said. "Show up before the elevator does." We stood breathing the same sweet, damp air and counted seedlings like a litany. She told me about the moment in the elevator when curiosity dressed as courage, about the stopping that made morning tolerable, about tonight's almost that felt like a door practicing her name. I told her about the motel parking lot and the laugh that saved our rent. We didn't trade sentences like charges. We handed them over like weights we intended to lift together. Lightning braided itself north of us. For a second the panes flashed with our reflections, and I watched my hand at her waist, my mouth at her shoulder, my face that looked less like a plaintiff than it had for months. She reached behind her, found my wrist, pressed my palm harder into her hip as if asking my imprint to outlast weather. Then she let go and stepped back exactly one pace, the way a good conductor does when she wants a section to play without worrying about being seen. Ezra shifted his weight and looked toward the stairs. "Loadin' at 9, he said, voice even. "We need 4 backs and no speeches." "Thank you," I said, which in this city translates to "don't ruin this. Keep being the adult in the hallway. You have my gratitude and my irritation in equal parts." He nodded and left the doorway to the plants, who commit to nothing but photosynthesis and rumor. Nia moved to the lemon tree and plucked a leaf, rubbed it between her fingers until the scent declared itself. "We're ridiculous," she said, "and alive." "The only combination I've ever trusted," I said. Rain found a seam and tapped a small lesson above our heads. I set my forehead to hers and listened like a person who has broken enough things to know how expensive repair is. She smiled without performance, and let that be the apology neither of us was owed. We locked the greenhouse at 12:47 and took the elevator down. Lewis at the desk glanced up, read our faces with the tired skill of men who file the night under housekeeping and the morning under math. He slid a spare umbrella across the counter. "Storm's early," he said. "Get home in one piece." At 9, the community center smelled like lemon spelling competence. Ezra stacked tables in the rhythm-gravity respects. I carried the other end. Nobody gave speeches. Nia moved through the room with a clipboard, and a mouth volunteers obey without hatting themselves. When she passed me, she pressed 2 fingers to my wrist, daylight legal, and the morning changed its mind about us. During break, I put coffee by Ezra's elbow. "Thanks for stepping back," I said. "Thanks for showing up," he answered. We nodded once like 2 men exchanging a treaty over labor and breath. We didn't tell anyone about the greenhouse. We didn't need to. We taped the lemon leaf, now brown, stubborn, to the side of our fridge under the magnet shaped like the ridiculous boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. Sometimes when the house auditions for courtroom, we walk past the building and tip our heads toward the glass like citizens saluting a flag they would rather not swear at. Sometimes she texts come and means stand beside me while I bend a room into competence and beauty. Sometimes I text come and mean watch me be a body before I become a plan. Sometimes we buy a citrus at the market and keep it in the kitchen just to teach the air how to remember us. We didn't stop admiring other people's competence. We did stop confusing it with permission. Heat is a temperature, not a verdict. Storms are witnesses who don't sign affidavits. We eat before we try to win. We sleep when the clock loses its manners. We put our hands on each other in daylight like the sun still issues licenses. And when the gossiping part of the city asks whether we have anything to add, we say we borrowed a room where breath can be seen, put our mouths where our vows still work, and return the key with fingerprints we intend to keep. The glass did not lie for us. It didn't have to. We told the kind of truth that survives humidity.